Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, my great mate, Ben Farinazzo.
Thank you, Dave. Good morning, everybody. On this day, the 25th of April, 106 years ago, it was a Sunday. Australians had no idea of the tragedy unfolding on the shores of Gallipoli. And yet it was the actions of those Australians and New Zealanders that sent a ripple effect across the ocean back here to see Australians of all ages gather from the bush to the beaches to pay their respect to all that serve and place others before themselves. Today, we are fortunate to be gathered on the iconic Bondi Beach, Aboriginal word meaning water tumbling over rocks. As we wait and watch for the sun to rise and the tide to come in on another ANZAC Day. And as Dave mentioned, I'm very honoured to be asked to share my thoughts on what ANZAC Day means to me. As a young boy growing up in Brisbane, running around in bare feet in the bush, jumping over bindies, I was surrounded by peace. War was a distant concept. It was simply something that happened to other people at another time. All that began to change. The tide turned when I turned 16 and 30 years ago joined the Australian Defence Force. It was there that I learnt more about our military history and our spirit of ANZAC. Listened to the stories of our World War, Korean and Vietnam War veterans, and studied the displays and the dioramas in the Australian War Memorial. But still, to me, ANZAC Day was a collection of black and white images of men on the shores of Gallipoli, the sands of Africa and the trenches of the Western Front. Until one day I found myself standing on a footy oval with a group of mates, not too dissimilar than today, but in front of us was the then Prime Minister, John Howard, who came to farewell us as we prepared to deploy to stop the bloodshed and violence in East Timor following the vote for independence. It was the largest deployment of Aussie troops since the Vietnam War, and he said to us, should harm find us, that Australians would be ready to look after our families and loved ones should we not return. And on that he wished us Godspeed. And it was there, in East Timor, where I was able to see our Aussies and our Kiwi mates, including my mate Bill, who's here today, in action, and touch just an inkling of what that ANZAC spirit was like. The following year, I returned back to our shores while Australia was gripping itself for the 2000 Olympics. But my mind was somewhere else, and I was fighting an internal battle. It wasn't long after that I left the military. I watched as my mates deployed constantly to war, conflict, peacekeeping and other missions across Australia and around the world, I saw some of my mates leave the military and go on to do extraordinary things in business, in government, in sport, and across our communities. But I also experienced the sufferings of war and service at that time. And I pray for all those loved ones that are suffering today and their families. It was at that time that I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. It was at that time that I no longer attended ANZAC Day. I didn't wear my medals anymore. I had this story going on in my head that I wasn't worthy. I now know that I was wrong. And together with the tremendous support of my wife, my kids, my mates, and so many Australians, I found myself once again standing on the deck of the ANZAC ferry in a thunderstorm. That was for effect. In a thunderstorm, together with my mates, Aussies and Kiwi veterans, all of whom had been impacted physically and psychologically as a result of their service. But they were there to turn a sad story into an inspiring one. And as the storms parted, and the waves and the clouds opened up, our little ANZAC ferry made its way across Circular Quay to the Sydney Opera House for the commencement and opening ceremony of Invictus Games Sydney 2018. And I remember walking off that ferry with members of the ADF lining the paths, you guys saluting, drenched like rats, as we made our way up to the embrace of our families and loved ones. And it was there that it struck me like lightning that there is a line of courage, endurance, mateship and sacrifice that connects everyone who serves, all the way from our original ANZACs to those in uniform today and into the future. I truly came to appreciate the fragility of our humanity, the strength of the human spirit, and our need for hope. ANZAC Day has come to mean more to me now than ever before. And on the eve of the withdrawal of our troops from Afghanistan and the Royal Commission into Veteran Suicide, war is no longer a distant concept. Instead, I now know that we only ever live in a world of half peace, because we need people who are willing to be out there to protect the foundations of our democracy, rule of law, and our Australian way of life. But we also need peace. We need peace to heal. And we need peace to inspire the imagination of our children and of all Australians to build on those foundations, to make Australia a better place for future generations. And while some things change, Some things, like those rocks in the water, stay the same, unmoving, unwavering. And Australia and ANZAC Day today will always be a day where we as Australians gather to pause, to reflect, and to pay our respect to all those that have served, fought, and died in our name, for us, for our country. And in Rudyard Kipling's words, lest we forget.